Hi, it's Heather here. I'm just going to do another updated video on how the baby chicks are doing. They're about 12 days old now, between 12 and 14 days. The video I'm going to talk about today is just getting into what to feed them and when to start feeding them snacks and little treats and when to feed them adult food. Basically going to talk about the feeding. They're very messy, as you can tell. I'm changing this water like 10 times a day. And I still give them the little cup. For some reason, I just still do that. There's my, there's my Rhode Island Red. And this one that looks like the Tory is the Sicilian Buttercup, which is a more rare chicken. Let's see, there's my White Leghorn. This one's the Silver Lace Wyandotte, I'm pretty sure. It's hard to tell between the black ones. This one here, I believe, is the Baird Rock. And I do have a Jersey Giant, which is probably this one. Like I said, the blacks are hard to tell. But I do know that this one here is the Baird Rock. But anyway, yeah, you want to make sure you have a thermometer in here. And of course, we still use the heat light. We actually have it off today because it's pretty warm. I want to try to wean them off of the heat. So right now we're down to like 88 to 90. With using the heat lamp, we kind of raised it up. So you want to make sure you do that. And actually, we are cleaning this thing out more than we realized. These little guys are starting to poop a lot. Actually, they're all females. They're starting to go bigger. They're actually starting to fly, which is pretty cool. But yeah, they're hard to catch. My friendliest one is probably the Rhode Island. But yeah, I want to get into talking about the feeding. So I'm going to come over here and show everybody what they're eating. Now, as soon as you get your chickens home, whether you pick them up or you get them shipped, you may notice them not eating for a whole day. You don't need to worry. You just need to make sure you show them where the water is. Now, mine did start eating within a couple of hours. They actually absorb food through their system still, through the yolk sac. But yeah, you just want to sit with them and make sure they drink water first, even before eating. Because it can cause problems with sticky butt if they don't drink water before they eat right away. Because actually they're babies. They've never drank water yet or ate. I know a lot of people say that the sticky butt syndrome comes from their diet. But I've never heard anybody mention it just coming from just them being babies. Because they've never ate yet or drank water or pooped. We only had that happen with actually 2 of our chicks. And I believe it was because I was adding a little too much alfalfa. But it wasn't a chronic problem. It only happened for a day. And you have to really clean that very well, or they won't be able to poop on their next bowel movement, and they will actually die. None of mine have sticky butt at all. Like I said, I just had the 2 have that. But yeah, you can check their butts every day. We usually do, still. But usually after about a week, you'll notice they won't get that at all. But yeah, you must clean that off with a warm cotton ball or something. And just be very gentle with that. But yeah, now back to the feed. When your chickens start eating, they should start within a few hours or the next day. You want to make sure you feed them starter crumbles only for the first 3 days. Now this is a non-GMO, non-medicated. Now my chickens were not vaccinated for coccidia. But that doesn't mean that I have to feed the medicated feed because I'm going all organic. So I don't want to feed them that. So I'm just giving them non-medicated starter crumbles. They look like this. And you can actually crumble them up a little bit more if your chickens are having trouble getting them. But you want to make sure they eat that. You don't have to actually go with this brand. This is just the brand that I like. And you can use the medicated if you want. And on day 4... I start adding a very small amount of teeny little pieces of alfalfa hay. If you dig down to the bottom, you'll get the smaller little pieces. Now we basically add this in, very small crumbles, to their diet. Always mix in the snacks with their feed because it can cause problems with digestion if you don't mix it. So we give that. Now we don't give the alfalfa every single day. We give it like every other day, just as a small snack. And since my chickens aren't eating the sand or the grit yet, I'm going to actually start adding that today. And I'll show you what that is in a few minutes. Now, on day 4 or day 5, I add another snack to their diet, which is very good for them. And you'll notice that they'll love it. Or at least mine love it. This is crumbled up hard-boiled egg pieces mixed with their starter feed. Like I said, always mix your snacks in with that. So yeah, you can do that. And again, we don't give this every day either. We give this about every 2 days. We give the eggs mixed in with the crumble feed. And you just give a very small amount of that. Don't like overfeed them that. Because you'll notice they will poop more when you feed them the eggs. That's just, for protein. And gradually add that. Make sure you add it into the food. And basically on day 7, you can start adding little things like pieces of parsley, teeny little pieces of that. And the more snacks you give, the more you're going to have to add the grit. Now I'll show you what that is in a few minutes. We're still using our heat lamp, but I have actually reduced the temperature. We raised it up. I'm not using it now because it's kind of warm in here right now. I'm trying to wean them onto the cooler temperatures. These fellas are 12 days old, like I said, 12 to 14. And yeah, they're at about 89 degrees now on this side. We put the heat lamp right here, and they can just go to the other side if they don't like it. Okay, here's the rest of the snacks that we feed them. On about day 4 or 5, you can give them teeny little pieces of oats. We use the steel cut, and they're very small. Now, sometimes your chickens will have trouble getting them. You can smash them up with a hammer in a baggie if, they're having trouble. And again, you only want to give a very small amount. And you don't have to give it every day. I don't know if it would hurt if you did, but we give it like every 2 days. Again, mixed in with their feed. Always mix your snacks in with their feed. Now, I've got mealworms here. I haven't added these yet. My chickens are 2 weeks old now. So once I start adding these worms, I have to make sure that I'm adding the grit, because these are going to be a little harder to digest than the foods that I was feeding them. But yeah, we're going to have to break these up into small, teeny pieces. And you only want to give these like every 4 days, or, every 3 to 5. It's not written in stone, but don't give them every day, especially at the age they're at now. You don't want to really start giving them stuff like this until they're like 4 or 5 weeks old. Now this here is grit. This is gravel and grit, which I'm going to start adding this today. Because if I add the worms, I must add the grit, because these are harder to digest than their normal chick starter feed. Now this here is not the proper grit, but this will work. This does contain a little bit of calcium. Too much calcium for young chicks is not good for them. It can actually hurt them. So I'm just going to add a very small amount of this. It's not really, really high in calcium, but it does contain it. You really want to get the one that just says gravel and grit without the calcium, but this will do. And since I'm getting a bird soon, I'm actually getting a lovebird, it can have this, so it's not like I wasted any money. This was only $1.99. But you want to add just a very little pinch of this. Just sprinkle it around in their living area. Don't actually put it in a feed bowl, because they might eat it all at once, and you don't want that. It's very fine sand. But yeah, you can add this one, but I would look around and add the ones without the calcium. You can give this if they're like over 4 weeks. It's actually very good for the layer chickens, but you don't want to give it too early. But it will benefit your layer chickens when they get to be about approximately maybe a couple weeks more than what they are now. About 5 weeks. So it wouldn't matter if you did give this later. But yeah, this is what we feed them. Like I said, you can add this when they're about 5 days old to their regular feed. You can add the alfalfa. little pieces of parsley. You can start them on the cracked corn, but I wouldn't do it yet. Again, I would wait until you add like all the snacks and your grit and stuff like that. I know some people will find bugs in their yard and add that to their diet, and you can do that. But you got to make sure that they weren't treated with any pesticides, which it's pretty hard to do. But if you're in your own yard and you know you're not treating for pesticides, then it's safe. This contains a lot of protein. It's a little bit harder to digest. So you want to add these little snacks very lightly. And you don't want to put the whole worm in because they just won't eat it. They won't be able to eat this. You just want to cut them up into teeny little pieces. Oh, it looks like they're alive. These are actually dried. Yeah, a couple of them every few days in small pieces is fine. And then your grit with that. Yeah, that's what we feed them. And they're doing really good. So, thanks for viewing my video again. If anybody has any questions or if there's anything that I left out when they're feeding, just let me know. I'll do an updated video on more foods that they can eat later on. For me, I'm only going to probably feed my chickens like 10 different things. I don't want their diet to have an extremely wide range because I just feel that that's where problems can occur with the digestive system. So basically, I'm going to keep on giving them this sort of stuff, even as adults. I am going to give them the cracked corn, maybe some barley, and of course they can pick around and get what they want. Since our coop is going to actually be sand, I probably won't even have to use this anymore because I'll just take what they need from the ground, the sand and the grit that we're going to add to their coop. But yeah, we might add some like marigolds and of course some herbs. Some herbs for them. And yeah, that's really about it. They can have table scraps depending on what it is. I don't think they can have onions or garlic. I know some people said they can, but we're not going to give that. I know they can have marigolds and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for viewing again. Bye-bye.